Polls show that Harris is closing the gap with Trump on handling the economy. A major improvement, folks. You can't lose sight of that from the double-digit advantage Trump held on President Biden over that particular issue. Joining us now, Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wikler, Arizona Democratic Party Chair Yolanda Bejarano, and Michigan Democratic Party Chair Lavora Barnes. Welcome. I'm loving the chairs in the corner this morning. Yay.
Especially because they are the ones doing the heavy lifting right now. Ben, you had the vice president in your state. We'll get to that in a second. I think the bigger breaking news right now is what we heard, Yolanda, out of Arizona. The Supreme Court deciding nearly 100,000 voters will get full ballot access after a clerical error. Talk us through what that's going to mean for voters in your state and for this election.
Yeah, absolutely. We are so grateful to our Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes. The Arizona Supreme Court sided with him. And, close to 100,000 voters will be able to vote a full ballot. And this is just testament to Democrats fighting to make sure that Arizonans have their constitutional right to vote protected. And we're just so grateful.
Chairman Wikler, I was very much interested in how the vice president would begin to have this conversation around the economy, since it has been such a weak point for Democrats, despite all of the good news that has come out over the past year. And now with interest rates cuts by the Fed this week, 50 basis points, and Republicans whining about that, saying like that's a bad thing. I want you to listen to how, in this very, very loose moment with Oprah Winfrey, the vice president talks about her economic agenda relative to Donald Trump's.
Part of my plan is to give startup small businesses a $50,000 tax deduction to start up their small business. Right now, it's $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So that's part of my plan.
That's a teeny tiny business.
That's a business in
teeny tiny business.
It's a concept of a business, right?
Yes.
They ain't ready for this. This is a concept of a business. I mean, I love, and the thing about it is people got it. I think people get it. They understand what that means for a small business owner to now be able to have this infusion of support.
Absolutely. Tens of millions of Americans have small businesses, and many more people think about becoming their own boss and launching a small business or a side hustle that's a small business. But when you launch a small business, then you get hit by a tax bill because there's not withholding. And that can be hugely problematic for people. So having the vice president in the corner of everyone who has a dream, who wants to build wealth for themselves and their families by launching something that is their idea, not just getting a job, that really speaks to a president who connects not just with people, as she says, trying to get by, but people trying to get ahead, people with aspirations. And it speaks to this big idea about the future, turning the page, thinking about where we want to go, not just going back to someplace where we've been. I think it ties in so deeply to the core idea of this campaign. It's why she has credibility on the economy in a way that has to be making Donald Trump panic a little bit.
Lavora, the national Teamsters chose not to endorse Kamala Harris, but the Michigan Teamsters did decide to endorse the vice president. Tell me how something like that plays in the state of Michigan.
Michigan is a union state. We are strong in support of our unions, and our unions are strong in support of our Democratic candidates from the bottom of the ticket to the top. The Teamsters here in Michigan have been terrific allies and partners of this party. They were very clear as I talked to them about their support for the vice president. Whatever the national did, I always felt that this state organization here in Michigan would step up and support the vice president. Their folks are ready to do the work that the other union folks are doing. Folks are out here knocking doors and making phone calls, talking to their fellow members and their fellow workers about the importance of this election, telling the story of who Donald Trump is and the lies he's told about jobs he would bring back to Michigan, jobs he actually sends away from Michigan, and about, of course, what Harris and Biden have done to bring jobs into Michigan and support these Teamsters and other union members. We know that in order to win this election here in Michigan, we need a strong coalition that includes each and every one of our union members and, of course, all of our other partners around the state. And they're leaned in deep here to make sure we get this done.
Yolanda, Arizona is important for so many different reasons. And, of course, as Alicia noted at the top of this conversation, the decision by the courts that clears the way for 100,000 voters in the state to participate who were otherwise potentially locked out is also good news. How are Arizonans sort of taking in all the attention, right, that comes with being an important battleground state, but B, looking at some of the issues that we've layered on the conversation today, the economy, for example, and small business components of that. Are they reading these candidates in light of, here's a solid plan, here's a way forward, of $50,000 for you to start your small business, and over here's a concept paper about running a business, and take a look at that and tell me what you think. How are Arizonans reading all of this and being in this particular part of the vortex?
Yeah, as a reminder, in 2020, President Biden beat Donald Trump by just under 11,000 votes. The path to maintaining the Senate majority runs through Arizona. We've got Ruben Gallego going against an election denier, Carrie Lake. We also have very competitive congressional seats that we lost in 2022 by very tiny margins, and we're set to flip them now. And we also have one of the closest state legislatures in the country. Yeah. And we are set to flip the legislature for the first time in over 60 years. And these are huge. It would be huge gains for Arizonans across the board. People, when you talk about the concept of the plan and you talk about what Vice President Harris offers Arizonans, small businesses, that is like the foundation of our state, small businesses. I think people are sick and tired of the racist rhetoric that is being perpetuated by the Republicans and the Republican Party in Arizona and Donald Trump. And people want to return to decency, and they want, good union jobs, which, the Biden-Harris administration has been at the forefront of protecting our union jobs and fighting for workers and working families. So I think we're seeing this across the board when I travel around the state. People want somebody who is a leader. They want somebody like Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz, and not, a convicted felon in Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Ben Wickler, Jolanda is right to remind us that in as much as this is about the top of the ticket, it is also about these down ballot races. You got Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania campaigning today in Wisconsin for U.S. Senate candidate Tammy Baldwin. You had Harris using part of her speech in Madison to rally for Baldwin. What do we need to understand about what is happening on the ground, beyond what is happening at the presidential level?
Senator Baldwin is a dynamite champion for working families across the state. There are so many places she can go where workers will say, I wouldn't have my job if it weren't for you fighting for Buy America policies, standing up for dairy farms, ensuring that Wisconsinites get a fair shake. And Wisconsin, like Arizona, is one of the states that'll determine the Senate majority. We also have at least 2 House races. You have Rebecca Cook running in the 3rd Congressional District. A recent poll showed that she's up by 2 points against a terrible Republican, Derek Van Orden, who's nationally famous for screaming at teenagers in the Capitol. Peter Barker running against Brian Stile. You have Kristen Lyerly running for an open seat in the 8th Congressional District. And then in the state legislature, we have fair maps for the first time in 14 years, thanks to a massive battle and finally a court decision. So because of that, we now have a chance to flip the state assembly majority in Wisconsin and break a Republican supermajority in the state Senate. These things can reshape politics in Wisconsin. And when you reshape politics in a swing state like Wisconsin, Michigan, or Arizona, it affects national politics as well. This is how we pass the national protections for abortion freedom, is by getting a Democratic Congress that can send the bill to President Harris's desk. And the down ballot implications for voting rights and everything else we care about in the state legislatures are vast. We're fighting at every level of the ballot. And if we win big this year, we will win at every level.
Laura, given how Michigan's Republicans are such a hot mess, how do those down ballot races look in your state?
They look great. And despite hot mess or not, we know that there's always going to be money and interest coming in to Michigan to support these Republicans. These Republicans are aggressively trying to go after congressional seats here, and we're fighting back hard. We've got terrific candidates running across the state. Our state house is up. We know that if the Republicans could take that state house and break our trifecta, they would, so that they could try to block all of the good work that Democrats are doing. We're working hard. We've got great candidates on the doors, on the phones, raising the money, doing the work. And, Alyssa Slotkin is running for U.S. Senate against a Florida man who would ban abortion, but she's doing incredible work. And we intend to beat her and hold on to that seat that Debbie Stabenow has held so well for us here in Michigan. Our ground game is strong. We've got thousands of volunteers, hundreds of staff, 50-plus offices open. We run a full coordinated campaign from the bottom of the ticket to the top. We talk about all of our candidates on the doors. We've even got a Supreme Court race we're very focused on. We've got two terrific women. One is the first black woman to be on our Michigan Supreme Court, who we're going to reelect. And we're going to elect another member of the Supreme Court who's a Democrat. We're all over the place here in Michigan, and we're going to win from the bottom to the top.
I love it. I love that energy coming from a state party chair. I love it. Chairs Ben Wickler, Yolanda Bejarano, and Lavora Barnes. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the hard work you're doing out there.